with Jack S. Hartsuch, Hartsuch, 1641 Kill Winning Court, Palm Harbor, Florida, phone 813-785-4188, on Friday, February the 17th, 1989, with Helen Earley of the Oldsmobile History Center, Lansing, Michigan. Location was at Mr. Hartsuch's home in Palm Harbor, Florida. Tape 1 of 2 tapes.
All right.
Evidently it wasn't
Apparently this wasn't getting up close enough to the switch there or something.
Okay.
Don't stumble on that now.
Thank you. Okay, let's, thank you.
Or maybe, oh, I know.
What?
That top switch is the one that works this.
Did she? I don't know if she had.
Well,
I
that's
was going to
what-
suggest, but it looked like it was covering the whole thing.
You know, I think that was it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I bet
okay.
you.
Okay.
I bet you if we put that in the bottom,
That's it.
that it?
Yeah.
Okay, that,
Mhm.
I forgot about that. Turns the table lamp on or something.
Oh, good. Not a thing wrong with the tape.
Nothing
What a
wrong.
relief, huh?
Nothing wrong with electricity.
Well, let's start now by telling us who you are, Jack.
Jack Hartsuch, 1641 Kilwinning Court in Palm Harbor, Florida.
When did you hire in at Oldsmobile, and what occasioned your coming there?
Oh, hired in Oldsmobile on November 29th, 1935. And Smith was the man that hired me in, and
What was his first name, do you remember? Was he in the personnel department?
yeah, he was in the personnel department.
Mhm.
I'm
This was
trying to
in
think.
Lansing.
Right.
Mhm.
And he said he'd give me 6 weeks before I'd quit. And that was a few years ago.
What did you hire in to do? Did you have any specific job on your application, or you were just looking for
No,
a job?
Just looking for a job. At the time, I'd just gotten out of high school.
Mhm.
And they put me in the 6 motor plant with Blake Miller and who's the guy's name? Another pro from Walnut Hills. They both worked down there during the winter months because it was just a little too cold to play golf up there.
These were golf
These
professionals?
were golf pros, yeah.
Oh, I see.
Tansy was the man's
Oh,
name.
Bob
Mike
Tansy.
Mike.
Oh, Mike Tansy.
That's Bob's dad.
Oh.
And they started me to work in the 6 motor plant.
Now, what building was that in?
Boy, that was...
I didn't know you then.
couldn't...
That's all right, we can move along.
yeah. But I worked for Jim Stewart there on the connecting rods, Wayne connecting rods. And I guess I did that for about a year. And then they put me over with Glenn Crawford in the salvage crib.
And what building was that?
And that was the building, well, that was the final assembly line area.
Okay.
Can't tell you what the number of the buildings were, I forget.
What did you do in salvage?
Well, we wrote out scrap tickets and kept the budget for our area. and
What type of scrap did they have in
Uh,
salvage?
was everything from the final assembly line, like moldings and bumpers or something that was damaged they had to replace. Why we had to charge the department who caused the problem.
Did you get any of the upholstery salvage from Fisher Body at that time? Was that coming over to salvage then?
No, I don't believe we had any salvage like that. But downstairs where you could buy parts or salvage parts, that was a different area from which I worked in.
I see. What did they sell downstairs then?
Well, you could get a tire for $8, well, they had a nail hole in it, but they wouldn't dare let it get out on a new car. Any tire that was flat was replaced. It was not fixed up, patched or anything. And well, little fuel pumps or whatever that they had of stuff that maybe came in under a certain part number that wasn't the right part number. They instead of sending it back to the company, they'd scrap it out, and the person then could buy whatever he wanted.
Well, so there was quite a selection of parts and items for sale then.
Yeah, you could get you could get mats, floor mats, and anything that Oldsmobile put on the car.
I
You
see.
could get. But I think Fisher Body had their own salvage at the time. Maybe once a year they'd bring over some scrap upholstery or something.
Were slip covers as popular then as they were later? Were they coming in then?
Yeah, they just started more or less to come in, and I don't know, they were used mostly on cars that were older cars to make the upholstery look clean when they sold them. That's what, well, in other words, when I was on the road a few years later as a service rep, we had to sell these, and that was our way of selling them, to clean up the car, before they sold it to a new owner. But let's see, that Glenn Crawford was, and Whitey Landell were in charge of that particular salvage crib I was in. And let's see, the union was getting a little strong about that time.
Now, how would you know that? Or were you a union man then?
I was at a later date. I mean, we had to be. I mean, you either belonged to union and worked, or you didn't belong to union, you didn't work. It was a closed shop. So the salvage crib, and then when the union came along, I got bumped because I didn't have seniority. And I went over to the 8 block floor. That was, can't tell you what building that was in either.
It's all right.
But, and I worked for Art Miller over there. And there's a little story about Art. He was a foreman of the 8 block floor. And this was hearsay, I didn't know. But that he'd gone fishing with dynamite, and I guess he caught quite a few fish that way. And
how do you use dynamite in fishing?
I don't know. You just light it, throw it in the water, and
Blow 'em out of the
boom,
water?
and then it kills the fish, and you go around and pick the fish up.
Oh, I see.
Now, whether that was true or not, a lot of people were talking about it at the time.
What would that be, in the lake or
Yeah, in the
river
lake.
right there?
Yeah, lake or river, wherever you're fishing. You just, I guess a concussion would kill the fish, and then they pick them up. But I don't know. He never, he never said he didn't do it, but he never told me he did either. And that's where the union activity came when I was over in the 8 block floor. That's where we had to either join or get out, I guess, except unless your belief, religious belief or some other belief said that you couldn't or wouldn't or shouldn't.
Well, I suppose
join.
your religious belief would prohibit you from joining the union.
That's right.
Were you still eligible to maintain your
Right.
job there at the factory?
Yes. Yeah.
How did they know that you weren't just saying, that a person wasn't just saying that religious beliefs kept him from joining?
Well, you'd more or less have to take his word for
I
it.
see.
And you could check into it, I suppose, but mostly it was religion, a religious disbelief that they belonged to.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that they had that prerogative.
Yeah.
So then you joined with, what would that be, Local 652?
652. Yeah. That,
What year was that?
1937 or 38, in 38, 1938. Yeah.
What, if I may ask, were you earning an hour? Do you remember
Well, I
your-
first started in there, I started in at 68 cents an hour, and I think the peak at that time was 76 cents an hour, which I got within a year, I guess. But just temporarily, you'd start in for 68 cents until I figured whether you could work there or not, you know, if you could cut the job. So,
What were the working conditions in the plant then, Jack?
not too bad. They had pretty good safety regulations at the time. Of course, it was up to you to more or less take care of yourself in a position like that, so you wouldn't get hurt. But they would explain as when you went into the department to work what the safety factors were, and that you should go by them, abide by them. So, but then when I was working there for Miller, for some reason or other, they had a slowdown in manufacturing for, I guess, about a year, and started in 1938. And I was laid off, I guess, for about 5 months. But that was the time that WPA came into effect, and we had quite a few people working on WPA projects down there from Oldsmobile or Fisher Body or anything like that.
When you were laid off, did you have any assurance that you would be called back again?
Not really. No, they were. They figured if production started up again and ran as it was before we were laid off.
Well, then
But
did
it
you have to keep going back to the Olds and seeing, do you have a job? That they didn't follow you. You had to.
Yeah,
keep
they
up
followed
with
us
them. I
because they
see.
recalled us.
They
I guess
recalled.
we were on recall or something like that. So
Okay.
that when the time came, why they rehired us back into work. That was, I think, because of the union. I'm not too sure, but I think, we were on seniority list.
Sure.
And so whenever your time would come up to go back to work or something, they'd call from the seniority list.
And you really didn't lose any seniority by this layoff.
No, that was carried right on through. So that was a nice thing. Because, well, before the union came in there, you figured, well, when you hired into Oldsmobile, you were going to work there till you died. I mean, you didn't have any retirement funds, you didn't have anything like that, no guarantee of a job or anything.
No insurance. There were no
insurance.
benefits.
No, nothing. But you figured if you were lucky enough to stay there, why, that you'd be there until you died or got sick or something or couldn't work anymore. That was the way things worked those days.
Was Olds one of the higher paying
Oh yeah,
industries in the
yeah,
city?
oh yeah. Everybody wanted to work at Olds because of the high pay there. So.
Okay.
And the working conditions too were a lot better there at Olds. So we had some pretty good leaders there.
Who was general manager then? Do you remember?
I've been trying to think, and he lived out East Lansing on
Debbie Skinner?
No, it was before Skinner's time.
McEwen?
McEwen, that's the guy, yeah, McEwen. They lived on Corner Hillcrest and Abbott Road out. And living from East Lansing, I knew most of those fellows out.
Did you ever see Mr. McEwen?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Did he come in the plant?
That, no, I don't think he did. If he did, maybe he did, but he didn't come in the area I was in, so.
Well,
But
did you see any of the staff heads, like the production manager? Would he come
No,
out?
Skinner is the man that used to be in there, that used to
He-
make the rounds.
Mhm.
And he's
Those
one
were-
of the boys that got rid of Mr. Dykstra that was over in the sheet metal plant, I guess. He didn't figure Dykstra was, I guess, telling him the truth or something. I don't know what the whole story was, but I know that Dykstra was either asked to resign or did resign, or I don't know how the story came about before
Was
he
that
went.
John Dykstra?
Yeah, the one that was at
Ford?
Yeah, he went out to California, as I understand, and made some of these ready assembled homes, prefabricated homes. He worked there before he went to work for Ford.
He was sort of a step ahead of himself, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he's very fortunate the way he came out. But I guess he was all right. I don't know. A lot of this is just, what you hear.
Now, who did your boss report to, the line of command going up?
Which one do you mean? And
Well,
what
your immediate supervisor would report to a
superintendent?
superintendent,
Yeah.
and then that superintendent was under the production or
Manufacturing.
the manufacturing.
Mhm.
I see.
Mhm.
Who was manufacturing manager?
I was trying to think of Brandl, but
Carl Brandler?
Carl Brandl is one of the Brandls.
Because Bud was the personnel
Yeah.
director,
Yeah.
and Carl was the other one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a day or two ago. Yeah, and then after that layoff they had where we were all working for WPA instead of Oldsmobile, we went back to work. It was, I think it was 39, either late 38 or early 39. Then I went to work on the assembly line over there for the frame line.
Do you remember what building that was in? What were you doing on the frame line?
Assembling mufflers and tailpipes and exhaust pipes and tightening down, I think it was shock bolts, I'm not sure.
Now, was that done mechanically, or was that pretty much a manual job?
That was manual, loosely assembled. Is all I had to set it in the frame and so that it would line up all right. And then down the line, then they tighten up the bolts and everything else. Huh?
Now, was
But
that with a mechanical device, the tightening? Or did they
Yeah,
do that
no,
with
no,
their
no.
own strength?
No,
I
that
see,
was
mechanical.
with a wrench, air wrenches.
Mhm.
Yeah, I did a lot of air wrenches. I worked for Archie Frazier then on that frame line. And then they called me back in the salvage crib again. That was about the time the war started. And the reason I got back in there is because I knew how to order parts and stuff like that for the cars and everything else. That was part of my job as a salvage crib, to order parts from different areas to different suppliers.
Now, were these small parts or all parts?
Yeah, these were all parts. During the war there in the salvage crib, we made these Navy and Army station wagons. That's all we had going down the assembly line at the time. And they weren't making too many of them, but
Army and Navy station wagons?
Yeah. for the
What,
Army.
do you remember what building that line was in?
That was in the assembly line,
In the-
assembly building.
Main assembly.
Main assembly line at the time.
Do you have any idea how many were made?
Uh,
Ballpark figure?
Yeah, we had a quote of 100. I can't remember. It was 100 and some we had to make. But they weren't running them fast. I mean, there was just a few of us working there, you know.
How many? 12, 15?
Yeah, maybe 20. 20 at the most. And
So it was pretty much a customized job, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah. They'd move, the line would move, and then it would stop, and then it would move and stop, and you'd keep putting on the parts in that particular area and so on. It wasn't a fast-moving production. It was just, we had a quota that we had to get out in a certain time, and that was it.
Almost
So,
hand-built.
yeah, they were.
Now, were these 6-cylinder engines or 8?
Well, no, that I can tell you. I presume they were
What?
6.
I think we had a straight 8, but we...
Yeah, the inline 8 and then in the 6 too.
What brand went on these trucks? What brand name?
They were Oldsmobile.
They were Oldsmobile.
Oldsmobile, yeah. Yeah, they were a station wagon,
And a truck too?
no, we didn't make
Just a
trucks.
wagon.
Just the wagons, yeah. The trucks are made before my time down there. They did have them, and then they gave them to the operation to Pontiac, I guess. Pontiac truck.
Oh,
So-
now would those trucks have been made? Like,
They were made before I got there, a long time.
well,
But-
you're not talking about the ones that were made from 1919 to 1922.
Yeah,
The economy truck.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Now,
yeah, that was given over to Pontiac.
fine.
And I guess we still furnish them engines.
Were those wooden bodies in the wagon?
Yes, yeah, they were all wood. Except, well, let's see. The doors were wood and the rest was metal. The top,
Top metal?
yeah, the doorposts were, I think, of wood too. The center section, the 2 doors fit too.
Fisher make the body?
No, they're made by, I think, Hercules. Hercules body made them.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, no, Fisher didn't make the body.
So you made about 100?
Yeah, at least 100, and I think it was more than 100, but I couldn't tell you how
Sure.
many.
Well, that gives
It-
us an
Yeah.
idea.
100. Well, whatever.
So that was really a separate line.
Yeah, well, it was used on the old assembly line, because when the war started, we didn't build cars.
No.
And so they manufactured the station wagons down through there for us. And,
How long
Just
did
to
you
keep
work
them.
in that area, on that wagon area?
Must have been about a year.
So this must have been 41, 42?
41, 42, yeah.
42.
Because then after that, after we got the wagons done, then I went over into salvage and, well, there was 2 areas I was in there. Well, in fact, 3 areas and of salvage during the war. There's one there where we had the 20 millimeter guns and the 37 millimeter cannon and the 75 and 76 cannon. We made all those in that area.
What building was that you were
One was in 40, breech block, and a 37 millimeter, I believe it was in there.
They were in building 40.
Building 40, and that's where we first started out with our salvage area in there. Then we were moved over to the old 6 motor plant. We had a salvage over there for a while. And then they moved me over to the shell plant.
Well, where was that?
That was up in, yeah, it was where we used to drive the cars from the assembly line over to this building for shipping. And I
Oh,
can't,
product delivery, building 68?
no, it was below product delivery. It was,
Oh,
well, let's see, what was it? Cunningham used to be in that area where they
that's all right, we can pick that
ship
up.
the cars out in there. And then
Oh, on the rail?
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I was trying to, I don't know why I can't remember the name of this building. I really didn't have any reason to, I guess, remember the name of the building.
That's not important.
Yeah.
What did you do in the salvage? The same thing you did when you were working on automobiles?
Yeah.
What would they do in salvage in the wartime?
No, if a cannon, for instance, had a slight crack in there, then you'd have to take it out, order the number, because all this material came in had to be accounted for to the Army or Navy or whoever sent it in. And if we scrapped a cannon, we better well have a cannon to replace that scrap, or give them the scrap cannon, or let them know what it is before they cut it up, so that we could keep that stuff straight. And they didn't want to get a cracked cannon back in
Use?
in use, yeah.
I see.
So it was, you didn't think it was important at the time, but later on you can see it would be pretty important to keep track of those cannons so that they could scrap them as they want. And they always had a government ordnance man there checking our work too.
On the shells, the same thing?
Shells, no. Shells, you could figure out a way maybe to save a shell. Maybe it was a heavy shell, maybe, so then you could take a little some metal off in the base, or go inside and take a little metal off in that to bring it within weight or length or everything else, while you had to figure out a way maybe you could save that shell, and if you could save it, to take it to the right area to have it remanufactured.
Well, then they really, one way of testing the shells was by weight?
By weight and length,
I see.
and of course outer diameter. You know, when I get it too big, it wouldn't go in a cannon in bad shape. So, yeah, it was kind of a challenge. It was.
Now they had an ordnance man right there too then?
Yeah. Yeah, we could rework the areas in that, maybe save the shell. But guns that had barrels or anything like that had anything wrong with them were just scrapped, period.
And then part of your responsibility was to keep a record of the serial number,
Right.
so that you could report it
yeah.
to the ordnance and
In
carry
case
on.
anything got through that shouldn't have gotten through, we would have an order or something on it that said it was supposed to be a scrap barrel or something like that. Like, you know, it'd be too
Did you
bad.
work a lot of overtime then?
I did when we first started up salvage there with Jerry Ecker. You remember Jerry?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I worked with Jerry Ecker on the salvage end of it, and of course we we did do a lot of overtime because there were just two of us running this whole operation, and finally we got a couple other fellas in there.
Do you remember what you were making, what your salary was then? Now you're still on,
$1.20, I think.
oh, now you're still on the hourly rate now. Or were you on salary then?
No, hourly rate.
Hourly, $1.20.
Yeah, I think $1.20.
Oh, did you get paid for overtime?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we were under union contract
Mm-hmm.
at the time, so whatever the
Okay.
going wage was what we got. So, yeah, that, no, we never got on salary in that area. We were working for Archie Lathrop and out of the inspection department. And Thorpe Corbin, Elmer Corbin,
Oh, yes.
he was the head of the deal. It was the inspection department. Well, moving right along. Went in the Army July 2nd, 1945. I'd been deferred up to this particular time until they said nobody 27 or under could be
Deferred.
deferred. So I was in there, and that was, as soon as I went in, the war with Germany was over. So I didn't have to worry about them. And then I was getting ready to go across to Japan, and that war ended. And so all in all, I was only in the Army about 6 months, I guess,
So
before I
you
got out.
Went in the Army in late
July,
45,
yeah.
oh, mid 45
40,
or 44?
44.
George was
When
born
that
44.
year George was born? Yeah, that's when I went in, 44.
6 months, and then
And then
when you came back, did you have the assurance that you'd be coming back to
tools, yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they gave us our, whatever we had coming, a bonus or whatever they give to us, Christmas or something, we had that, they'd give that to you, they'd send it. And, yeah, and I came back after the war. I was supposed to start to work that night.
In what area?
In the indoor road testing on the final assembly line, where you put the cars on a roll test.
Oh, the test rolls. Oh, yes.
I was supposed to start there that night, and the fellow I knew had started in there in the morning.
Now, this was probably early January 45. Okay, I think we're all set here.
Okay, just I'm trying to think of George's last name. He went in the morning on the roll test, and I was supposed to go in that evening on the roll test. And they called a strike. That was in November of, what, 1945? Yeah. So I didn't get a chance to go to work, but George did. And he couldn't draw unemployment insurance, and I could because I haven't started to work yet. Boy, he was mad.
That was a bitter winter, too, as I recall.
Yeah, it was.
Very bitter.
Mm-hmm. But I was drawing unemployment from, I guess, from the Army because of the work availability. I guess.
Then when,
George Stark was the fellow's name that went
Oh,
in the
yes.
morning.
when did you get back to work then?
I don't know how long that strike did last.
Yeah,
No,
it seems
it
like
was-
April 1st was when
yeah,
we got back
yeah,
in Building
yeah.
7 or Building 60.
Yeah. It was,
And then when you came
Different.
back, you still went in on
I
the
went
test
in
rolls?
on the indoor road test, yeah, the rolls, roll test, and the final assembly there.
And who was your superintendent then?
Let's see, who was there? Oh, big tall guy. Can't
That's,
think of his name right now.
that's all right.
But he was strong enough, he could reach right down the pit, pick a man right up and sit him on the floor and give him a talking to.
You probably didn't have to do that.
I didn't
very
argue
often.
with him at all, no. He was, he was my foreman then at the time.
Was he a fair man to work
Yeah.
for?
Yes, real good, you know. If you did all right, you did all right. I remember one time I was on the line when they were just starting with these new door caps, that filler that they had to put on the door to make them bulge out a little bit.
What
they
kind
were,
of a cosmetic detail?
yeah, that's what it. And so he told me, well, he says, if any more of these, there are quite a few coming through loose. If any more of these come through, turn off the line.
What do you mean loose?
They weren't tightening them up properly.
Oh.
And they're getting them out of line, and so they just leave and they just hang there loose on there.
Was this an extra part?
Yeah, it
that
fit
was-
right on the door to match the fender.
Oh, and then when it was painted, it all ran into one
They were all
piece?
painted. No, they were
Oh.
all painted. But it was like the fender ballooned out a little bit.
Yes.
So to make it match the door, they had to put the balloon on an extension of the door so that it filled in.
I see.
And so they came through loose, and so I turned off the line, and that guy's name, it was Mike Mennel, was head honcho over there. He came down through there. Who turned that line off, you know? And I said, I didn't. He said, well, we'll turn it right back on. And then this guy that was my foreman like that, I don't know where he came from, behind something, and he slapped Mike Minnow's hand, and he says, you heard what he said, you get those things tightened right here before they go on. So I guess he got on the line, got that straightened around,
Okay.
so they got one. But I wish I could think of that.
They were tightened on with a bolt or a...
Yeah, air wrench, they had an air
Air
wrench
wrench.
at the end. But they weren't getting them aligned, they weren't getting them on right at all. He said, so, let's see. There, and I was working on final assembly way. We started quality control, Bob Cook.
About what time was that then?
Now that was just
47, 46 late? Before the rocket engine?
It was after the, yeah, before the rocket, it was after. It was about the same time I was 46.
That's all right.
40.
Bob Cook was the...
He was the starting, we started quality control. And then there was 4 of us, Bob headed by Bob Cook, that were on the line, and we were trying to figure out how many defects they had coming off a particular spot that could be corrected, you know. If there was too many, then why, and then get the thing fixed.
who were these other 3 that worked with you, Jack? Do you remember?
Well, there was a fellow over in the motor plant, and another guy on the line, on the assembly line, and what was the other one? I can't tell you.
That's all right.
Yeah.
What was Bob Cook's title then? Do you remember?
He was working for inspection department,
Okay.
and he was just a shade under chief inspector, which he got at a later date. He was chief inspector before he got to manufacturing
Okay.
manager, and then also general manager of Oldsmobile.
Right.
And then when I was working for Bob, I got a chance to go into the model service garage over there and working for George Linton.
Now,
In Orville.
that was building
That was engineering building
64?
64. Yeah, that's right. When you tell me numbers, I can imagine. Yeah, I worked for George Linton over there, or Swartz.
Now, what did you do there in the model service garage?
Well, we had charge of the company cars. We kept them operating, you know, and worked on them, gave them inspections of changed the grease and the oil, and when they got ready to sell a company car, we had to go through the carburetors and everything else, make sure it was in
Kind of
tip-top.
prepping the car.
Yeah, for sale.
Mhm.
Yeah, and also got some problem cars in there to work on. In other words, maybe Story, it wasn't Story at the time, but the old Traveling Olds would have problem with a transmission or engine or something like that, and they'd send it out to us and we'd clear up the problem.
So these were major mechanical problems. Did you
Yeah.
handle any cosmetic problems?
No, we didn't have anything to do with the appearance.
Do you know where that was handled? Like paint chips or bad fit?
That was done mostly on the line.
I see.
We sent ours, I think, if it needed paint, upstairs to engineering.
Mhm.
Engineering paint would take care of some of our stuff for us.
I see.
But we We didn't have too much of that. We didn't have too many paint complaints or anything like that. So, service garage. Oh, then engineering needed the room that we had for our model garage area. So they put us over into, used to be old final assembly line after they built the new one over in, right next to the old assembly line. But we had an area in there that was called a service garage from there on, because when they went in under manufacturing, why inspection had to take it over. They couldn't have a service department per se in the manufacturing area.
So then you, up until this time, you'd been under the manufacturing
Yeah,
staff, and then
under
you,
service department.
under service, and then you
Mhm.
switched to inspection.
Inspection. In the manufacturing area, we had to go that way. I
Right.
mean, that's what they gave the excuse. So Joe Dobbs was the head of the service department.
What kind of a man was he to work for?
I never had any problem with him. I think if you're a good listener, you got along all right. You know, he's one. He was. He had a good tight control. He ran a tight ship.
What was his title then?
He's a general service manager.
Now this was about what year?
And this was a year or two after the war, so it would be 40. Well, when we moved over in there. Let's see.
Well, still before the rocket engine.
No,
Oh,
I think it was after rocket engine.
would that
I
be?
think we had some of those. Yeah, rocket. It was after the rocket engine. Yeah.
The early 50s, maybe.
Yeah. Could have been. So 50, 53.
Mm-hmm.
It's 40, yeah, it must have been 49. 48, 49. Because when I was in the service garage area over there in the manufacturing area, Bill Buxton wanted to know if I wanted to be a service rep.
Now, what was his title then?
He was assistant to Cole, Elmer Cole. He was assistant general service manager.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I took the job.
Now then, that was a salaried job.
That was salary, yeah.
So you became a service rep.
Right.
And
1950.
did you have any training here at the home office before you went out in the field?
No, the only thing I had for training was transmission. I had to go through the transmission school they had up in engineering.
I see.
And it was run by service department.
Hydromatic transmission.
Yeah.
Then, how long a class was that?
I think it was a full week.
Mm-hmm.
There could have been longer. I think it was a full week, or at least a full week.
Then were you sent right out to one of the zones?
Yeah.
Which zone
Sent up
was
to
that?
Charlotte. Charlotte zone, North Carolina.
So as a service rep.
As a rep.
Okay. Did you have a certain number of dealers that you had to contact?
Yeah, I had all in North Carolina except Charlotte.
I see.
So there were quite a few dealers there, and I can't understand today why some of these service reps that go out and only handle, maybe 12, 14 dealers, where we used to have, I don't know, 50, at least 50 dealers. We didn't contact them all the time or steady, but if they needed any help, we sure wrote them in to, get them taken care of.
Lynn, did you have a schedule that you visited every dealer as often as you could, or did you have reports come in from dealers that they wanted a service rep on a
Yeah.
certain fix?
We had that too, but we had ABC dealers.
Okay.
And
now-
those that were in the A class got a little more attention than the B or the C or however you had them categorized.
Now, was the A dealer like in a metropolitan
Yeah,
area?
big deal. You know, like, well, like in our area it was Durham, Winston-Salem, Raleigh, and Charlotte. Those areas were the A dealers, and then we had Rocky Mountain, small others that were B dealers, and then some that were C dealers. But I made a habit to get to one of them at least every 6 months, all of them.
Well, now, were these single dealers, or were they dual dealers?
Some were dual, but most of them were single. Raleigh was Cadillac. Most of them were Cadillac Olds. I don't.
You didn't have any off-brand dealers then?
No. Some one dealer would have maybe 5 cars under one roof.
All GM?
Yeah, all GM. And
Now,
but
did you
most
try
of
to, excuse me, would you try to sell dealers certain service,
yeah,
hey, nice, certain service programs? What type of programs would you be trying to sell?
well, in those days we didn't have the service training center, so you took it on yourself to have a meeting at the dealership once a month, or whenever the dealer wanted it, but at least once a month, on any particular item he wanted to know more about. So we could disassemble and assemble it and talk about the problems and everything else with it, like a steering gear or a differential or something like that that they wanted to go through with. We'd take that product, we'd go take that right to the dealership. We didn't have any training centers at the time where we could send the dealer. And I don't know, it seemed to work all right. But nowadays I don't think you can get any of the mechanics interested in that. I don't know why. It's just fallen off to the point where I think we've lost control. I'm not sure. But now they've consolidated all the, as I understand, they consolidated all the General Motors training centers to a engine section, a transmission section, and so on and so forth, and it doesn't necessarily have to be run or controlled by Oldsmobile. I haven't visited one, but that's the way I understand it.
When did the GM training centers come in?
See, down in Charlotte, 53, I think it was.
Now, who at the home office had charge of the training centers at that time? Was that under Dobbs or Buxton?
It's under Dobbs or Buxton or Cole or whoever was in there.
Whoever was the general
Yeah.
service manager?
Yeah, it was under his. Yeah.
Now, these training centers, there was an Oldsmobile section, a Cadillac section, a
Yeah.
Buick section.
Each one ran their own particular section.
I see.
And that's what I finally got into. I mean, after, in 53, and I came back, we had our service, we were back to service again department,
Oh,
up in building 68.
yeah, excuse me before we get
Yeah.
back to the home office here. Did you encounter any resistance from dealers on certain service policies that the factory wanted to instigate with a dealer?
No, the only problem we really had was the dealers didn't like the seat covers. They didn't like,
The seat covers?
yeah, and stuff. Well, we had a quota that we had to sell. The service, pardon me, we didn't have it. The district
Zone office?
sales reps.
It was only their quota.
Yeah, they had a quota and we'd help them out. That's how service got tangled up in it.
I see. Oh, the district managers.
Well, they're district managers. Yeah, they might have a little resistance in one dealer, you know, and of course being in service, you could go in and help the guy out of a deal, you know, and he was having problems with, and then turn around and sell him a couple of seat covers, you know.
Okay.
But that's generally how it worked it. But along in that particular area sometime, we lost control of our being able to tell a dealer what to do and how to do it. And
Why was that? How did that come about?
I think because they were tired of us kind of telling them what, you know, what to buy and what to do and everything like that. And actually, if they'd followed our way of doing things, they'd made some money, you know. But they were just resisting everything we said or did or tried to do. And finally, they got the government. They got complaining to the government, and then we had to keep hands off. That's where we lost control of the dealer. We used to be able to walk in there. If the dealer wasn't doing a job like we thought he should do, we'd ask for a little green book. That's his title for being able to sell the cars. So, their dealership. But then we lost control of that.
So you mean you could go in and ask for his franchise?
Well, yeah, we could suggest that, you know.
Well,
If he didn't, yeah,
threat.
but it had to be a problem.
Legitimate,
Yeah, it had to be legitimate.
Well, now you say the government precluded your doing that later. Who represented the dealer? Who was the middle person between
Well, they had
the NADA?
yeah, they had,
That,
yeah.
I see.
They had their own organization. They complained. Now, I don't know if it was the government or not, but anyway.
Yes, there was a regulation there that...
Yeah. So that we had to have hands off. I mean, there's certain things we couldn't do anymore, so.
Well then, the dealer franchise would have to be rewritten in some way, wouldn't it? To specify what the factory control could be and what the dealer's responsibility had to be.
Yeah, I don't know
All
what the
that time.
sales area was.
I see.
The sales pitch at that time was. But I don't know. We lost control there, and I think we never got it back. So that's my opinion.
Were you, what about the AFAs?
I never did
You weren't
any
in on
work
that?
on the AFAs or anything like that. No. Johnny Holland, those guys up there, I never had anything to do with it. Well, of course, if the dealer had an AFA he wanted worked out, we had to do that for him, you know. But I mean, I never worked in the AFA department, in the service department. But if he was having a problem, why, getting paid for a job, why, either it was legitimate or it wasn't legitimate, and then we could sign it and it'd go right on through.
I see.
So we didn't have any problem there.
Well, Jack, do you remember any interesting or comical or significant incidents that happened in some of your contacts with certain dealers?
You know, I never had any problem. Some of these reps we had would complain about some of the owners getting pretty uptight, you know, and want to take a swing at you and everything like that. But I guess I was very fortunate. I never had anybody take a pass at me like that. Maybe not that they shouldn't have, but they never did. So.
Were you always in the Charlotte zone?
Yeah, that's all.
I see.
Well, I was in the Charlotte zone, and then they transferred me over to Omaha zone. And then I came back into
the same service rep authority in Omaha?
Yeah.
That was in what year about?
53.
Then you came into the home office?
Then I came into the home office.
In what capacity was that?
Well, we were training service reps out of Building 68, our cap. And we had future reps there. And then, a short time later, I became a technical writer for John Reinhardt, Randy Reinhardt.
What kind of a man was he to work for?
I think he was fairly sincere, man. Yeah. I think he was. Never had any problems with Randy.
Now, at one time, didn't he have charge of the GM
Service training centers. Yeah, that's where I was working. That's where I was doing.
You reported to him.
Yeah. They were writing these leaders' guides for programs.
What about these service fixes that come out on certain items? Tell us about the story about those.
You mean on that? I didn't have too much to do with. That was, you mean technical bulletins?
Yes.
No, I didn't have anything. The only one time did I have something to do with it, and that's when they first came out with the station wagons.
Now, what year is that?
That was, gosh, thanks. What the heck year was it? Came out with the all-metal station wagon. 60? What? I can't remember.
Okay.
But anyway, there was one that they're having problems with, squeaks and rattles and stuff like that because of the welds in the station wagon.
Who was making the body for the wagons then?
Fish body man. The only time I remember was when I had to write a technical bulletin on how to fix the squeaks and the rattles and everything, and what to look for in the body construction.
Well, didn't at one time, wasn't there an Ionia concern that made bodies for our wagons?
Yeah, they
Mitchell
made a
Bentley.
Fiesta.
Oh,
I think that was earlier.
oh yes. 53?
Yeah, the same time a Corvette.
That would be the Mitchell Bentley.
Mitchell Bentley. Out of Ionia, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Now, was that an all-metal wagon?
Yeah, that was. See, that was a Fiesta. I think they were all metal there, but they had a
Wood
decal they put
grain,
on the outside.
wood
of it.
grain
Yeah.
decal.
Yeah, I think they had a decal on it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's what they did.
So you reported to Rainey Reinhardt then?
Right, yeah, just
Directly.
shortly before I retired, in General Motors Training Center, which was, I enjoyed the work very much. Because you get to go to engineering, contact engineering, get stuff, and make up the leader's guide. You'd have to do all the writing and get all the pictures together for 35 millimeter film that you showed, and get the parts together that they were going to need in the program. And it was real interesting work, and you were always working a year ahead of time. In other words, you're in on the new things and making your programs up for repairing or how to disassemble or assemble it. And everything. It was very interesting work.
Well, did you ever work on the service manual illustrations?
No. We made our own illustrations, and once in a while we might, instead of duplicating pictures, we use each other's pictures. But
So then you really made your own slide presentations,
yeah.
put those together,
Sure
did you? Did you have a commercial photographer? How did you get your pictures?
Yeah, we had.
Who did you work with? Roger Betcher?
Yeah, Roger Betcher, and then we had some stuff out of
GM Tech?
GM
Or photographic?
Photographic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I see. Would those photographers come right there to the plant?
Yeah, if they did, but they would not GM Photographic made our 35 millimeter films.
I see.
And then there was another guy that made the up there. I'm trying to think of.
What department?
It was no, it was a special. It was an outside deal
Oh.
that made film. Jam Handy.
Oh yes.
Jam Handy made us some. Little story. We were down there. Art and I were down to a new car showing down there, and Jim and Tom Jam Handy. Mr. Handy was there. And they served him about the best looking steak that there was on the table. And he turned it down. He says, "Bring me some squash peas or something like that." He says, "I can't eat that stuff." And here it is. A guy got all that dough and he can't even eat a good steak because of his stomach, you know, and all that. That always said, "Well, don't get too high up because you still want to eat steaks, you know."
So no matter how much money you have, why
Yeah, in bad shape.
it doesn't always buy your health.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm. Well, do you remember any other kind of cute incidents about personalities or things that happened?
I'm trying to think of.
Jerry Ecker was an interesting man. wasn't
Yeah, yeah, I knew Jerry. He lived right down half a block from me down there in Lansing. Yeah, I've known Jerry for a long time. We used to bowl together a lot, Jerry.
Well,
And that service team.
do you remember any customers coming directly to the factory?
Oh, yeah.
And you're having to deal with them?
Oh yeah, used to get those quite a bit.
Okay, do you remember any specific incident? Or how did you handle those?
Usually they left them at the gate down there, and we'd go out down at the gate and pick them up, bring
Now,
them back.
would that be Elm Street?
Yeah, down by 70 there, or
Mhm.
60. There used to be over 60, 70. Yeah, well, the owners would leave them there, and then we'd take them back in and correct whatever problem they had on there. As far as anything out of line, I don't know.
So really, the home office did what a dealer should have done.
Yeah,
In a way, if a customer got so perturbed, he did come to a factory.
yeah. Well, lots of times, not lots of times, Buxton, well, when he was general service manager, he'd send me out of town to correct a problem, like Detroit or Toledo or some other place like that.
Now, would that be a customer who had gone to his dealer and he couldn't get
Yeah.
the satisfaction that
Right.
he
He was
felt he deserved?
little irate.
So then would you go to right? You would cover the
go
dealer's
right.
situation first and then go to
Yeah.
the customer?
Well, yeah, that's right.
You had a background.
Yeah,
on
you
it.
had a background on what the problem was.
So then you go right to the customer's home?
Yeah, or business, wherever
Or,
they
I
car went,
see.
yeah. And talk to him
Mhm.
and get his viewpoint of it. And then take the car and then correct the problem and give it back to him.
Now, would he have a loaner car if you needed
Oh
a
yeah,
car?
he'd have the car I drove from the office down there. In other words, I'd take company car down and leave it for him to drive while I had his car in for repair.
Suppose his car wouldn't start at all. Did you run into that situation? Or he'd have to have
It would
towed?
start, but it wouldn't run very good.
I see.
Good enough to get it to the dealership. But
Well, that was really a personal touch, wasn't it?
yeah, that was fun.
One-on-one.
Yeah, I enjoyed that very much. Yeah.
Did you find that most owners were very receptive to
Sure,
that?
they'd always write a letter back to Bill and didn't think you could do it, you know. Didn't think your problem was there.
Salary and the time you add it all up, you haven't gained a thing.
No, even now they do pay your moving expenses.
Oh, yeah.
don't they?
Yeah,
but
no
they-
problem there.
I think they did one way, but not the other.
And
Well,
doesn't
that's because I quit out there and came back.
Pardon me. Doesn't Argonaut Realty sometimes help you with your
Right.
sale of your house?
Yeah, if you can't sell your house over, 90 days or something like that, within 90 days, and it's priced right, Argonaut will buy it and give you your...
But that wasn't in the
Title
after
to it.
we were.
No,
Uh-uh.
that was after we were there. But we never did when we were service rep. Well, you never knew when you were going to get moved anyway. So, all you did was rent.
Mhm.
And that, some people have a dislike to, too, because if you're in Lansing, you pay so much a month on a house, you're buying a house. But you get out in the field, you don't dare buy a house. So you're throwing their $400 or $500 a month, whatever you're paying for, out the window. It's not going on a house. And you travel that way for 30 years, you know, and then you get ready to retire, you don't have a house.
You don't have
And
a
you've
house.
got all your money wrapped up in
So you never really
Rent.
got an equity in
the house.
any home.
So that's the bad part about that.
Yes, yes it is.
You know? So, I don't know.
We didn't really have a customer service department per se when you were a service rep, did we?
Yeah, we used to get cars in, but
What
they
did we
weren't.
call that? Did we have a little department that actually handled that?
Ernie Stoppel was in that.
I see. What was Ernie's title? Do you remember?
He was with Montgomery.
Oh, G.R. Montgomery.
Yeah, that was the area for
Relations.
customer relations.
Now I recall. Right.
And
Do you have an idea how many people were in that area, Jack? How many employees? 3, 4?
I think only 2 or 3.
2, 3.
Ernie Stoppel was the only one I really remember in Montgomery.
That was about, this is still in the early,
This is early,
mid-50s?
yeah. Because
You remember when that department began? Did we always have a customer relations department?
as far as I know, we did. It was separate in the AFA department. It seemed like it was separate from a regular service department.
I see. So then you had an AFA department that reported directly to the service manager.
Right.
Customer relations department that reported to the service
General
manager.
service.
And then a regular service department that wrote technical bulletins
Mm-hmm.
and trained service representatives.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any other service branch there? Who handled the writing
There's
of the manuals?
manuals, yeah. There was service manual and owner manuals and things like
Who,
that.
that was under
That
service.
Riney had that. It
He
went in my,
handled that.
I mean, not all the time. I don't know when he took it over, but he finally took that over. He had that and General Motors Training Center.
Mhm.
Anything to do with education.
I see.
So,
What about automotive equipment donations to educational institutions,
Yeah.
like schools and penal
that was
institutions?
under Riney too. We had to make out tags and fix them to the stuff, to the parts so that they couldn't resell them or use them.
Okay, now, what kind of parts would become available through that program?
Mostly assemblies like transmissions, engines, differentials, any assembly.
Axle.
Big, yeah. Well, yeah, differential.
That's an
Yeah.
axle, I see.
Yeah. But that would be,
Automobiles, did they donate, like say there's a flood, or a rail cars go off and a dozen of cars are damaged, that would be an automotive equipment donation?
I don't know if they did. It'd probably go to Fisher Body because our area would scrap the engines or could give them out, but usually there'd be so much water stuff in them that it wouldn't be feasible to give them away. I mean, scrap them.
Now, if those say that a rail car went off and you got a dozen cars on it, you're kind of banged up.
Yeah.
Fisher would take those cars and
No, they'd come back into
go to
Oldsmobile, and they would work them to different areas. Like we had a service, well, it wasn't service, the one out in the parts department out there.
Oh, Plant 4?
Plant, was it Plant? Whatever,
On
yeah.
West St. Joseph?
Yeah,
Plant
they
4.
go out there and be reconditioned.
I
'Cause
see.
out there, I worked in that area too for a while. That's the one that moved from model garage over to manufacturing, and then manufacturing that moved out there. But there they would, of course we had our own paintmen out there that could paint, and we'd have to get the upholstery would have to come in from Fisher Body. They'd have to do the work on that, and of course the engines and everything else. Most of the time you'd have to scrap them because they'd be full of water or unusable or not usable.
Who headed up that department there at Plant 4?
Trying to think, the guy came in from, he was a service rep, came in from Washington, state of Washington, or Oregon. I think it was-
Yeah, that-
They wanted me to take it up over there at one time, and I turned it down. Mainly because they wouldn't let me do the type work I thought would be necessary on a car. I mean, if it isn't written up, the guy says don't do it. Well, I say if it isn't written up and it needs doing, do it, you know. So I just couldn't get along with them out there. I knew that, so I turned it down. I told them why.
Do you think that hurts your chances for movement elsewhere?
I don't know. It didn't help it helped my peace of mind.
Mm-hmm.
If I figured if a job needs to be done, do it. If it doesn't, why? Something else.
What happened to these cars, say, after they were reconditioned at Plant 4? Then where did they go?
Usually put them in a fleet, check them out, and then sell them, resell them.
So they'd be a used car?
Oh, yeah. They usually put them in our company fleet.
I see.
And they use them there. If anything went wrong, why, they didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was, yeah, that was, yeah, they'd remanufacture them out there at Plant 4.
Well, suppose the cars were so badly damaged that there was no salvage. Who made that decision on that?
That came under inspection. Whoever the chief inspector was made the decision on that. Because that's whose department was out there at Plant 4. The inspection department.
Well, I suppose there was a flood in the south, I recall one time. Seems like this was the latter part of the 60s. And by the time any action was taken, somebody said, well, there was weeds growing up in the upholstery of the car.
Yeah.
Well, now those cars certainly weren't salvageable,
No.
but why would it take so long to make a decision?
I don't know. Probably there's some rules and regulations that the government has that we had to abide by. And plus our own, you know, we can, just to get a car out and sell it, it may hurt sales for other cars too, you know, if we get. See, the main problem was the car would smell badly because of the seawater or whatever else was in. We had a problem up in New York and New Jersey in that area with a flood one time, and I don't know how many cars we had back. A lot of them they scrapped right out without even messing with.
Now, does the company cover those cars with insurance? Can they
Yeah.
recoup some way?
Oh yeah,
I
You know,
see.
there's all kinds of insurance on those cars when and sometimes the carrier.
I was
Has
going
to
to ask
carry
you
the
that
insurance,
next
yeah.
about, now the commercial carrier and the railroad both have a responsibility
Right.
if something goes
Yeah,
wrong.
Mhm.
Primarily, to your knowledge, we were shipping cars mostly by rail when you came in?
Yeah, they didn't ship cars much till after the war.
By the
Silver got in the trucking business during the war, hauling cannons to Maryland or wherever it was, proving ground.
Oh,
And then after the war, well, he and his wife started that, and his wife was, I guess, one of the drivers, and she was the one that kept the business together, as I understand. And after the war, he got a fleet of trucks, and he said, well, I'll haul your cars wherever you want them now. So he did, and then another one came in. This was Central, no,
C&J?
C&J, yeah. So those two haul cars, and of course they do a lot of rail shipping too.
Yes.
But that was the main way of getting cars out of there for a long time.
Well, we used to have this drive-away.
Drive-away,
People
too.
came in
Yeah.
themselves and
Mhm.
could save the transportation.
Yeah, come in from, they could fly up here from Florida or California and make a trip out of it and then drive their car back. And it would still pay them to do that. So, yeah, a lot of people used to do that, and then they cut that out.
Why do you think they cut that out?
I don't know, I think it was probably a burden on us. I think it was probably one of those things that we could do without cost savings or something. Then they started, what they did then was to make carrying charges the same amount no matter where it went in the country. In other words, if it was $260 to ship a car to California or Alaska or New York, or the cost, I think, was the same. Even in Lansing here, when you get a car, I guess if you got one through stores, the shipping charges
You pay.
were the same as what they were if they went to California.
Jack, what about recalls? Tell
Uh,
us something about recalls.
Yeah, we didn't seem to have too many of those. We get,
What was one of the major ones you recall? Well, how do they work?
well, they were send a letter out to the owner,
No.
tell him that you have a defect here and that it should be taken care of at the earliest possible time. Because it may be injurious to you, or it may cause an accident, or may,
But how did you know that that could happen? What brought that
because
to your
it had
attention?
happened, or maybe a mechanic found a problem, like cables or something like that, where they're too close to the engine and the battery cable would burn or get hot, and then it'd burn the battery cable and ground out, and then you'd have a problem. Also with water, like in the fuse panels or something like that, it would drip down through the chamber there, the air inlet chamber, and the water would get down in the fuse panel and cause a short or corrosion in there that would keep it from conducting electricity to the starter or whatever it was. Transmission problems, something started that converter spinning too fast, it might disintegrate, or I don't know, a lot of things in there, vibrations, things like that would be bad on the car.
But these were all problems that didn't show up in the normal testing that the factory does before it puts something in the
Yeah.
car, and even after it's in the car.
That's right, they didn't show up in the proving ground. They wouldn't show up with us driving in cars or
Mhm. So then, suppose a transmission problem, which is a major
Yeah.
recall, happens. Then the first step would be to notify the owners.
Mhm.
Now, would that be by regular first class, or would it be registered mail?
just regular letter, just regular.
So they wouldn't have any record of whether that letter reached the owner or not?
No, they might have urgent on the outside or something
I
like
see.
that that causes attention.
Well, then, how would they know that that owner still owned the car? Would they run a check through the State Department?
Yeah, you'd have
Secretary
to,
of State?
well, you'd have to check the original bill of sale, or whoever the owner is.
Mm-hmm.
And if he'd sold the car, then you'd have to find out,
How would you know that? How would you know if he'd sold it?
well,
I mean,
on the little notice that they send out, you still have the car, I don't know, it has different things on there that would know whether you have sold the car.
oh, I see. So
Or little
first,
checks.
a letter would go to the owner asking him if he still had the car.
Yeah.
And alerting him.
Yeah.
I see.
And then
Okay.
if he had sold a car, or
Then,
anything, notify the dealer, or the dealer would probably is the one that sold the car
Mm-hmm.
to begin with. So usually the dealer would have
The
a
record.
access or record, to
Well,
the-
did most of these recalls show up within the first ownership? First?
Yeah, oh yeah, usually they showed up within 6 months of the new cars. Yeah.
I see.
After you did.
So then the owner is asked to bring his car to his dealer,
Yeah,
and then what happens?
for a correction.
For a correction.
Yeah.
And then, suppose that's going to take a day or so. What
Well-
happens? And the guy's got to go to work.
Yeah, that's the problem. I don't know, I always get insurance that'll cover me for a car if it's gonna take over a day. If I gotta leave the car overnight, you got insurance to drive a car. So you order a drive-away car or a rental car or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what they've done with these warranties now. They've gone to 5 years or 3 years or something.
I see. So
You buy
in a new
insurance to-
type of warranty, if you have to leave your car overnight because of a recall,
Yeah,
they,
or any reason
or
whatsoever.
any, oh, I see, any service
Any problem.
problem?
Whether it's related to
Pardon me.
recall or what. If it's if it's something that, something happened to the engine, but usually most of that stuff's in warranty. But
So if it's covered under warranty, you can get a car, and that's covered too.
if you have that
the rental,
warranty, yeah.
If you sign up for that warranty.
Yeah.
I see.
And usually, I don't know, I always get it because it's so darn convenient.
Well, yes, it's almost
It saves you from walking.
necessity instead of a luxury, really.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, then say you bring your car in, here's this recall on the transmission, for instance, and you suppose that that's the 1 in 1,000 that they can hardly fix. Once in a while there's one that's
Yeah.
unfixable, then what happens?
Well, usually get the service rep in and have him
By
make
that
make a
time, does the
correction.
dealer really, or the dealer service rep really know what's the matter with the car, do you think?
Well, I don't know. I don't.
Are they that well
I
trained,
don't know.
or some of them?
I hate to commit myself.
Well, I don't mean to pin you down, but I was just kind of trying to get these steps in order here.
Well, everyone I've made contact, I haven't made contact with or talked with in here, or anyone I've had try to correct the problems on my car, I would have to go along with the answer that I think they just tell the dealer to go ahead and fix it. I don't know if they know how to fix it.
I see.
Now, I had a new engine. I had a car. Well, anyway, it's one of the cars I had. I had a problem with engine oil, or engine water leak in there.
You mean
And there-
leaking out a radiator?
Yeah, using, the water was going out of the radiator in the engine or someplace. So I had they wanted to put in a short block.
Now, was this on dealer fix?
Yeah, and the dealer fixed it. And they wanted to put in a short block, and I said, I don't think there's anybody down here who can put in a short block. Well, I think there is, you know. This is out of Jacksonville, I talked to them. And I said, no, it was a build-up block of some kind. I mean, sure. But anyway, the car was in there for 3 weeks, getting this short block put in this thing. And I called up the dealership and asked them what the problem was, or the service rep. And he said, well, he says, they got the engine all in, and the cam bearing was missing out of one location there. And I said, yeah.
Is that the new engine?
Yeah. And I said, I know what happened. I said, just like I told you before, I don't think they can put a short block in the car down here. I don't think the guys are qualified to do it. I said, what happened is when they put the camshaft in that engine, they jammed it in and knocked the bearing out. That's what they did with it. And I said, they're not kidding me any. So that was just one of the things that I just a little leery about. I don't know. And then, of course, with my diesel engine, they didn't know better problems with that, oil leak and stuff. But I don't know, I never got it fixed the first time it was in there.
Well, don't these dealer service managers go to a training school too?
I presume they do. I don't know what
But they're not factory trained.
I don't know what the status is on those. I don't know if they're even supposed to be anymore. I don't know what the problem is. They may be just carriers of tapes, you know, to replay the tape and look at, you've done this job twice, we're going to have to charge back all this dope here. And if they got 14 dealers, I don't know. I don't know. Of course, like they say, they got more cars out there, but you don't have more locations. I mean,
True.
Sure. Stories are still stories, and
Well, this
Yeah.
FAA problem or situation must really be overwhelming
yeah,
financially.
yeah. I think the dealers are making up pretty good.
Well, with so much on the cars now, this computerized thing,
Yeah.
I wouldn't think smaller dealers, would they be set up to, do they have this
Oh, yeah.
computerized
Yeah.
equipment they can plug it in?
They've gotta have the proper tools,
I see.
and every year they got new special tools
To
that come
keep
out
them
with.
up to date?
The dealer's got to be equipped with that stuff.
Well then, is that a better method of servicing? Does that seem to be working better?
I suppose it is if you got the right operator there, the right guy drawing the conclusions as to what's wrong with the car. I would say, but I think those can fool you. I don't know. I don't know that much about the new engines. See, I retired before we even got the diesel engine
When did you retire?
in April 1974.
Is that right?
Mhm.
Now, did you, was this on one of the early...
Early retirement. Yeah. In fact, it was the first bunch of mine.
Is that right?
Mhm.
Now, and you retired as, your title was
Technical writer, I believe.
technical writer, and you reported to
Riney.
You reported to Bucks, no.
No, it would be,
Stebbins. No,
Claire Oxendale.
Oxendale.
Had died before I retired.
Well,
But,
then, who was in there then? Stebbins? Ivan Stebbins?
No, he's in there now. God, it could have been Stebbins, but
Seems like there was another man in there, and I'm trying to think of his name too for the record.
yeah.
Well, we can check that.
I'm trying to think who that was.
So, 1974, that's been 15 years.
Hmm. Yeah. That's been one. Enjoyed every minute of
Good.
it.
I can see that.
Yeah, I didn't.
Well, Jack, you've given us a lot of information. Do you have any interesting stories or personalities or experiences or?
No, I just always been rather fortunate. I never ran into too many problems with people.
I think a person's fortunate just working for GM.
Yeah, I'll go along with that. You bet your life. Yeah, you can't beat that. No.